Today I spent the entire day watching Bill Morrison films on Filmstruck because his theme expires on June 9th, but I intend to only watch Pride titles or mostly Pride titles during June, so I wanted to get it watched. Thus, I watched everything that was in the theme except Frozen and Frozen Time because I had seen Frozen Time last year. So, this was 17 films, I believe. I'm going to try to go through them really fast. The first one is the film of Her. It's from 1997, and it follows the true story ish of a man who saved a bunch of paper film prints in 1939 and how he was not awarded a Special Academy Award for these efforts. Someone else was instead. It is slightly fictionalized to be about the search for a nitrate porn print, but as you do, it's beautiful. As you know, Bill Morrison finds orphan films and abandoned films and films that are nitrate films that are falling apart and makes them into new stories. This one was from 1997. The next film I watched was, it's loading, here we go, City Walk from 1999. This one, as it sounds, follows a person walking through a city. Beautiful, high contrast black and white photography in this one. And all of his films have amazing scores with various musical artists. Some of them, the music came first and then the film was made around the music. The next one I watched, I got a cattail here, was Ghost Trip. This one stars musician Slink Moss as a man who drives a car until it will not go anymore, and you are not sure what's real and what's fantasy and what is reality, and it sort of looks like his found footage films, but is actually not a found footage film. Beautiful, dreamy film. The next one, and the one he was most famous for prior to Frozen Time, was 2002's Decasia. Decasia is about just over an hour long, about an hour and 10 minutes, and it takes tons of archival footage and creates this beautiful otherworldly story from these fragments. It's gorgeous and amazing, and if you liked Frozen Time, this is similar, except that Frozen Time obviously was a documentary and told a story, and this is just an original, gorgeous piece of motion art from scraps and orphan films, and I highly, highly recommend that one. The next one was also from 2003. This was The Mesmerist. He takes the story from, what was it called? Oh, it's gone. Oh, God. I had notes. He takes an original film from 1926 starring Boris Karloff and Lionel Barrymore that is in fragments and recreates it into a new story with the sort of falling apart film. Karloff is amazing as always. It's Lionel Barrymore when he's young-ish. Was Lionel Barrymore ever young? I'm not sure. But it's a fun film for anybody who loves silent film and who loves resurrected films. The next one was 2004's Light is Calling. This takes a scene from 1926's The Bells and adds it to a new musical composition and creates this beautiful romance film that is gorgeous and heart-wrenching and all done in about 8 minutes. Absolutely lovely. The next one was 2005's Outerborough. This one took shots of, I believe it's the Brooklyn Bridge, one of the bridges, as it was built. They shot from a train, and they've done this many times. There's a bunch of different films of various states of the century, various times in the century, where they stick a camera on a train and make a film of the train going in and coming back from the city. In this case, Morrison took both images from the going to and leaving and put them side by side and created this new beautiful piece of work that was, I believe, commissioned by a museum. The next one was 2006's Porch. I really liked this one. This was not from silent era. This was sort of mid-century summer barbecue films put together with a really haunting uh, soprano aria type score. And it's all these sort of Super 8 shots of people in the 50s and 60s like barbecuing on their porches, but brought to life, and just a fascinating sort of slice of mid-century Americana, I thought. The next film I watched was 2006's The Highwater Trilogy. This is a 30-minute film that takes place or that showcases three 10-minute segments of uh, floods. So the first one is a flood by like a seaside town as the water is sort of flooding over the dock. The next part is sort of melting ice cap type flooding, and the third part is a town flooding. And that part I liked the most, I think, because it had these really haunting shots of people attempting not to die, floating on wagons and kids holding onto things and stuff, and it was horrifying and amazing all in one beautiful experimental film. The next one I watched was 2007's Who by the Water. This was a compilation of shots of people boarding steamer ships and waving to steamer ships and on steamer ships, and just anything you ever wanted to know about steamer ships in the turn of the century but were afraid to ask, all in one 20-minute film. The next was 2010's Spark of Being. This one is insane. This is an hour and 10-minute retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from found footage. It really does look like a silent era version of Frankenstein. It's great. It has the frame narrative and everything with the ice and the dogs, and the ship finding, the doctor and the birth of the guy and the creation of the creature and the stealing of dead bodies and all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. The research that went into this one must have been immense. Fantastic film. Definitely watch that one. The next one was 2010's Release. This uses image from the transfer of Al Capone from prison or from jail to trial, and it's looped in about 13 minutes as you see the crowd watching him be moved. The next one I watched was 2010's The Miner's Hymn. This one is about the coal mining towns of northeast England at the turn of the century, and the score is by Johan Johansson, who obviously recently passed. It's a beautiful look at a different era of British working class northern England. That didn't make any sense, but I think you know what I meant. Like these areas like Manchester and Sheffield and some of these sort of made their money as mining communities, and as that sort of as coal mining sort of fell apart as it did here in America, there was a loss of a way of life, and it very similar in northern England to what happened in coal mining country here in America. Not that we should bemoan coal mining, but when you build communities on something that's unsustainable, you're going to lose it. And this is an interesting look at that bygone era in England. The next film was 2012's Just Ancient Loops, and it is a mixture of found nitrate footage and CGI renderings of space to demonstrate what heaven could look like. It's fascinating. The next one was 2012's The Great Flood. This looks at the Great Flood in the Mississippi River flood of 1927. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long, and it has a beautiful, beautiful jazz score, and just shows you everything about this area before, during, and after this huge flood that was one of the largest natural disasters in American history. And the fact that so much of it was captured on film is just crazy. Just great. The next one was Reawakenings from 2013. This uses found footage from several different documentaries and 8mm prints shot by shot by and about Oliver Sacks, who was the man who uh, found a drug that would reawaken people who were in a catatonic state from encephalitis lethargica. There is a documentary about it from the 70s, as well as Penny Marshall directed a 1990 film starring Robin Williams and Robert De Niro about this story. This is the actual footage of the patients as they're being treated by the doctor. Beautiful color 8mm, 16mm shots of these people as they are being reawakened and as they're having side effects from the drugs. It's really fascinating. And then the last one I watched was 2014's Beyond Zero, 1914 to 1918. This is a 40-minute documentary about World War One, with an amazing score and all of these just amazing documentary footage of the Great War as it's being decayed by these fading nitrate prints. It's amazing and lovely, and I love this era of filmmaking. Like, the teens is my favorite era of silent film, and seeing this recreation, or not recreation, but this sort of revitalized documentary of all this footage. I've seen actual documentary footage of, like, I watched at Pordenone last year some documentary footage of 1917 Italy, and it was boring as shit. And so that's awful to say, but seeing him take this kind of footage and make it into something gorgeous and moving and stirring about the war was just incredibly rewarding. So these are the 17 films. There's actually 18 films on Filmstruck if you also watch Frozen Time, Dawson City Frozen Time. Bill Morrison is a very interesting filmmaker, visual artist, raconteur. I enjoy his work. Watch it on Filmstruck before it expires June 9th.